Elon Musk's recent all-in political bet and the fact that it paid off is one of the most disruptive things to happen in the tech sector, which is all about disruption. But there are consequences to every decision. And did Elon Musk make a mistake by going so all in, or will this actually end up paying off in the end? Let's take a look. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I am going to do my best to stay away from politics in this episode, but I do want to talk about the consequences of what Elon Musk did over the summer and into the fall, and the consequences of this decision both in the short term and the long term for Tesla customers, for Tesla the company, and also SpaceX, X, etc. But I'm going to focus mostly on Tesla today. For Tesla shareholders and also for the Tesla Halo, the group of influencers that are around Tesla and SpaceX and other of Elon Musk's companies. I think that there are consequences to all four of these, and they of course overlap with each other, but I will start with Tesla customers. So the most obvious thing right now is Tesla customers. I'm going to focus on the United States because that's where the election happened, and that's where I think people care the most. Obviously, this will have repercussions outside of this. I'm going to discuss China in just a minute. But anyway, within the United States itself, obviously, approximately half of the voting public, very slightly shy of that or very slightly more of that, depending on how California's count goes, did not agree with the horse that Elon Musk backed. And by the way, I will not say his name in this video because there is evidence that YouTube's algorithm will reduce the amount of views that I get if I say that. So anyway, that's the reason why I am studiously avoiding that name and will not say it throughout this video. But anyway, within a hair's breadth of 50% of the public, the voting public, did not agree with Elon Musk's position, and that is going to have some consequences to Tesla as a brand in terms of consumer demand for the product. Now, of course, on the positive end of things, there are going to be a lot of people who find what Elon Musk did and the person who won and all of that kind of stuff very much a positive, and there is much more chance that they will look into purchasing a Tesla vehicle based on what Elon Musk did. Is that enough to make up for the other portion of the population that is kind of like never Tesla now? There are a large group of people that I know who have told me that exactly, that they will never consider purchasing one. That was prior to the election results. I have a feeling it will be even more drastic now. I haven't really talked to a lot of people about that recently, but certainly over the last 6 months, I heard a growing chorus of people saying that they would never purchase a Tesla ever. And if they're going to purchase an electric vehicle, it will be something else, or they'll just stick with ICE vehicles. So in terms of Tesla's customers, it's kind of a balancing act. Is Tesla gaining more from people who now will look at a Tesla that might not have before versus losing that group of people who will never purchase a Tesla or never purchase a Tesla again? And there is a group of that people as well. Of course, if you look back at the roots of Tesla, you were looking back in the early 2000s into the 2010s with the Model S release and everything. That group of people that supported Tesla through those early years was very much the California liberal, environmentally conscious type of person, often very much into the technology world as well. They had to be relatively wealthy to purchase an $80,000 or $100,000 vehicle. So, it was a relatively small group of people, but that group of people was very passionate and they tended to be very, very liberal in their thinking. And that was the group of people that supported Tesla in the early years. And I would say probably up into the late 2010s, maybe even 2020 or 2021 as the tide began to shift and a more broad audience purchased Tesla's vehicles. But there's a large swath of that population that purchased early Teslas that feels very betrayed by this decision. So that is going to it's got to have negative downstream consequences, because these are the people who purchased a Model S, then a Model X, then maybe a Model 3 or Model Y, and now a Cybertruck, etc. Those people, if they stop purchasing Teslas, that's going to have a big negative consequence. Again, will there be enough people who will suddenly decide that they want to purchase a Tesla that never would have before? I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's very much worth considering for Tesla the company that a large group of people, the group of folks that supported the company from the earliest days, is now turned off by the company's politics in the form of what Elon Musk has been doing. Now, that's not all of them, of course, and a lot of people have changed their political stances over the years. So again, I'm not trying to be too drastic with this, but there is a large swath of people that will not purchase a Tesla anymore. And a lot of those people are the same people that purchased a Tesla and purchased multiple Teslas over the years as Tesla grew into a larger company. With that being said, we can turn to the probable removal of the EV tax credit that will happen within the next year or so. That will likely drive up Tesla sales in the United States in the near term, because as people find out, let's say that it's the end of the June quarter or something. So as of July 1st, there will be no more EV tax credit. There will likely be a large push of people attempting to purchase an electric vehicle in that time frame so that they still get the EV tax credit prior to when it goes away. But after that happens, I predict a major drop off in and demand for electric vehicles. Of course, not just Tesla, but for all electric vehicles in the United States. Now, this will have a probable positive effect for Tesla because effectively everyone else is already losing money. And I'm talking Ford, GM, Volkswagen selling in the United States, etc. These companies are losing money selling in the United States. And if the vehicle becomes effectively $7,500 more expensive for most consumers, they can't lower the price in order to remain competitive to sell vehicles in the US. So there's a likelihood that they will actually exit the United States market and choose not to sell electric vehicles in the United States or just stop manufacturing them altogether. But of course, the other piece of this is without the $7,500 tax credit, even let's say if Tesla reduces the price of their vehicles by $3,000 or something, they're still $3,000, $4,000 more expensive than they are currently effectively for the general population. And every time you add $1,000 onto a vehicle, you make it more difficult to afford. So you make it more challenging for the public to afford that vehicle. So even if they want to purchase the vehicle, they may not be able to purchase that vehicle. Now, of course, the counter argument to all of this is that Tesla is going to be making the cybercab and turning everything into a robo-taxi. And of course, the administration is very likely to be much more friendly towards that than the previous administration has been. So we could be looking at a major push towards getting Tesla vehicles to become autonomous, to be able to sell rideshare and all of that kind of stuff. I think people, as opposed to plunking down $40,000 to $100,000 for a vehicle, would be much more likely to, let's say, compromise their morals for a $5 or $10 car ride to someplace in a cybercab or a robo-taxi-ified Model Y. So that also changes things, which makes it very difficult to predict exactly what's going to happen. But a lot of that depends on what Tesla, the company, can do to push the full self-driving, autonomous driving all the way forward to the fact that it is 99.9999% effective and doesn't make mistakes. And as it relates to Tesla, the company, I will table that for just another moment. The next thing I want to talk about is the United States' relationship with China, which is already very, very fraught. Tesla's largest manufacturer, their largest factory and their largest export hub is located in China. This becomes very complicated if we start looking at a massive tariff being placed on Chinese vehicles and all Chinese goods. This will almost definitely lead to a trade war. It will almost definitely lead to China deciding not to, bring cars to the United States because it'll be too expensive. But it also means that companies like Tesla could get booted out of where they are. They could be taken over by the government. The government could decide to start selling them. There's a lot of potential downstream consequences. And of course, car companies, including Tesla, will not be able to sell things into China. Not that they do a lot of exporting from the United States into China, at least Tesla doesn't, but many of the other companies do. So this is going to have a major impact on automotive sales as well as everything else sales, because China is our second largest trade partner behind only Mexico and is just barely behind them. So anyway, this will have major consequences all around, but it could have super major consequences on Tesla because they have their largest factory is in China. And of course, they have a bunch of other factories in addition to their main car manufacturing factory. So this could have a significant impact on Tesla. And with that, we've already partially been talking about Tesla, the company, but let's move on to their mission statement. Their mission statement is accelerating the world to sustainable energy. Right? That's what they say. That's what they have lived by for almost 2 decades at this point. The issue with potential tariff wars and with the removal of the EV tax credit is even though Tesla itself may do very well, this could cause other car companies, like most other car companies, to either go out of business or decide not to make electric vehicles anymore, which of course has the effect of not transitioning the world to sustainable energy as rapidly as otherwise possible. Now, China is going all in on electric vehicles, no stopping them. They're over 50% now of new sales are electric vehicles. Europe will likely go that way as well, including a flood of vehicles coming in from China to really push the EV agenda. And that could leave the United States as the only major market of the top 3 that is still primarily ICE because there's no real push towards electric vehicles by either the government or the market forces, right? If you put these giant tariffs on and China cannot sell cheap cars, cheap EVs into the United States, you're delaying the transition of the United States into electric vehicles. Of course, one can argue whether that's a good or a bad thing, but certainly the United States is going to be lagging way behind if we get the combination of a tariff war with China and the removal of the $75 $7,500 tax credit. So I see that as anathema to Tesla's mission to transition the world to sustainable energy. And now turning back to the regulatory environment, this again is a potential positive, and that is that Tesla, both in terms of manufacturing capabilities inside the United States at least, and certainly their ability to roll forward full self-driving autonomous driving, the likelihood is that they will be given a lot more green lights than they have been in the past, although states tend to control that regulation much more than the federal government does. So, maybe it won't. I mean, we could see a negative consequence. Honestly, we could see California getting very, very upset about, the consequences of all of this stuff because it's a very, very liberal blue state and really throwing up roadblocks to Tesla. But there could also be federal regulations in charge and other states like Florida and Texas, etc., that could be much more open to this and give Tesla a big green light in terms of doing their autonomous work, which, if it's successful, is really going to turn the auto market on its head. So a lot of what I was saying in the first sort of part won't have nearly as big of a consequence because it really doesn't matter if people are buying your cars or not when that's not really the model anymore, when the model is you're selling rides instead. You're building vehicles and you're allowing people to ride in your vehicle as opposed to purchase your vehicle. That really flips the whole economics of everything on its head. So that could have a very major positive consequence for Tesla. Continuing on with the company, and this extends to SpaceX and potentially X, although it's probably already happened at X, but I worry a lot about the potential for a brain drain at Tesla and also potentially SpaceX. And that is that there are people who are, either are employees right now or could potentially become employees, right? Graduates and people who are coming from other companies, very highly qualified people who would decide that they don't want to work at Tesla or potentially SpaceX and potentially other companies of Musk's as well because of this political stance. Now, of course, this is purely speculation, but it does seem like a reasonable stance to take that there would be a group of the best of the best. That's who Tesla and SpaceX, etc., want to hire. There would be a group of those people who would decide to go elsewhere rather than continue working for these companies specifically because of this decision. And that could have, long-term, very, very negative consequences. So I do worry about that for Tesla. That seems to be a negative consequence that Tesla really needs to consider right away. Next up, let's talk Tesla shareholders, of which I am one for full disclosure. I don't have a ton of Tesla stock, but I have enough. It's a decent amount. Obviously, in the short term, Tesla did very, very well on the stock market after the election results. So for Tesla shareholders in the short term, that looks pretty darn good. On the other hand, how is Tesla stock going to do, let's say 6 months to a year from now? That is obviously way, way less clear. And this is a speculative episode. And please remember, I'm not a financial advisor, so do not take anything I say as financial advice here. Do your own research. But a lot of this has to do with consumer sentiment. That goes back to the first thing I was talking about. If collectively people stop purchasing as many Teslas as they used to in the United States, that is going to put a lot of pressure on Tesla. If Tesla has problems with their Chinese factory, either with the state government or being unable to export their vehicles, or the Chinese people are not interested in purchasing the vehicles, or the Chinese fight back due to a tariff war or something, that could have even bigger negative consequences on Tesla because they could actually potentially as much as lose the factory. Again, this is not outside the realm of possibility. China does this. It is not a democracy. They do what they want, and who's going to complain about that? So this could have potentially very, very major negative consequences for Tesla, which of course depresses the stock. That could make the stock go way down. On the positive end of things, we'll probably see a real push towards the humanoid robots. Again, we will probably see Tesla given a lot of green lights that they might not have gotten immediately with something like that. We'll almost definitely see that with robo-taxis and cybercab rides, which again, if successful and if Tesla can overcome the problems of brain drain at the companies, could push the company into a completely new model where they're not really selling hardware anymore like cars or anything, but they're actually leasing out humanoid and four-wheeled robots for people to utilize. That's a whole different economy and potentially much, much larger. So that could cause Tesla's stock to go up. Which way is it going to go? Probably given Tesla's history, it will go both ways. We'll get huge ups and big downs. It'll go up and down, up and down, up and down. Over the long term, I really don't have a prediction for which of the two, it's going to go ultimately, whether it's going to go significantly down and stay there, or whether it's going to continue to go up and rise very, very rapidly. If any of you with better investing chops want to let me know in the comments. I would love to find out what you think about that. And finally, let me talk about something that's very personal to me. That is the halo of content creators that are around Tesla and around SpaceX, etc. That's the group of YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, X creators that spend a lot of time effectively doing the public relations work of Tesla, getting the word out, fighting the FUD, etc. What is going to happen to that group of people? So the first big problem I see is one of loyalty versus conflict. We content creators were able to kind of divorce politics from most of what we said, at least most of us did, for a long time. We could discuss a generally positivist view of the transition of, the world to renewable forms of energy and renewable forms of using that in the form of electric vehicles, and also about AI. And of course, Tesla is one of the leaders in the AI space. So we were able to talk about that in a kind of non-conflicted, non-political discourse. That has definitely changed in the last 6 months. I just have to look at my comments to know that. There are a lot of people discussing opinions both publicly and privately with me, and it becomes much more fraught to do any video that has to do with Tesla and again SpaceX and other Elon Musk companies. So all of a sudden, what used to be a relatively simple thing to discuss, which is the world's transition to electric vehicles, how Tesla is a leader in artificial intelligence, how they're doing these amazing things, has become a politically fraught statement. We're suddenly thrown into a world that I at least don't really want to inhabit. I would much rather talk about Tesla as a company. I'd much rather talk about AI. I'd much rather talk about SpaceX and the amazing work that they're doing, getting us to, into orbit with large reusable vehicles, getting us to the moon, getting us to Mars. But it's basically become impossible to talk about these companies anymore without the politics coming in. And quite honestly, even driving a Tesla now is a political statement as well. So all of this makes it much more complicated to be a creator right now in this space. There is a possibility that a lot of people may move away from Tesla and SpaceX and talk about other topics. Of course, a lot of people have taken the opposite tack and gone even more all in on Tesla and SpaceX, etc. So again, as with everything else in this very speculative episode, I don't know which side of the fence things are going to go on. I don't know how the balance is going to work out, but certainly things are going to change over time with the way people cover Tesla and with the way people cover SpaceX, etc. All right, those are my thoughts. It's very difficult to talk about all of this stuff. I hope everyone appreciates the fact that I've tried to be very fair about this. I've tried to divorce as much of the politics as I can. I just really wanted to talk about the potential consequences, both positive and negative, about Elon Musk doing something that really is almost unheard of in the business space. Most business leaders will, of course, donate to a political party or another, but they're not nearly so outspoken, and they don't take charge as much as Elon Musk has. Of course, he's going to have a role in the government as well. That has other consequences I won't even talk about because that does get much more into politics. But anyway, I hope this was a thought-provoking episode and made you kind of consider the possibilities that are going to go forward for the next year to 10 years based on this decision that Elon Musk made. Definitely let me know in the comments what you think about all of this. Try to be, of course, pleasant and constructive with everything. That would be nice. And I'm sure everyone else would appreciate that. As always, if you're able to like the video and subscribe to my channel, I would love to get to 100,000 subscribers by my birthday, please. That would be lovely. Thank you so much. And I will see you in the next video.